Okay. Is it okay now? Testing.
And did you record it?
Yeah.
Okay, can I continue? Okay. Right, so this thing that I'm going to show you now, this process I'm going to show you now just came about when I was managing a team of 100% outbound reps who were responsible to find their own data. Very, very much scrappy startup type of team, responsible for sourcing their own data using tools like ZoomInfo and LinkedIn. And the chaos that was happening and kind of the process we went through to manage that chaos a little bit. So just about me, my name's Strati. As I said, I've been in Ottawa about 9 months now, and I've got a small consultancy called HP Apr, doing Salesforce for small and medium businesses, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Pardot, stuff like that. Okay, so just quick backstory. This was a new org for a new team. The managers had been using Salesforce before, so they kind of knew what they wanted, and some of the reps had and some of the reps hadn't. But the point is that this was a new brand. An existing business with a new brand getting into a new industry, no marketing initiative, so there were no inbound leads, and very quickly formed a sales team of about 10, which then grew within a few months to 20, and no centralized leads research process or anything like that. Each rep had a ZoomInfo account and a LinkedIn Sales Navigator account, and it was just all day import. Okay. So what was happening there was they were using leads, and then we had no control over duplicates, right? So multiple people would reach out to Walmart, and then there was a fight. If no one made any successful contact, which was 90% of the time, that was okay. But like if they did make successful contact, it would be a fight to say, but I was working on Walmart and all of that. So we stopped using leads. We moved over to accounts and contacts only so that there was a centralized ownership of accounts and it was easier to manage duplicates, right? But we still had problems with that, right? Because reps were assigned a territory, like you three are in the UK, you seven are in the US, and it wasn't any more formal than that. So within the US, I mean, you know that the scope of companies in the US is massive, so there was no control over that. So we still had fights of like, you were almost incentivized to go on ZoomInfo and download as much as possible to have it in your name to say, well, it's on Salesforce in my name, therefore it's my account, right? And then it was, yeah, pretty much just a race of who gets it into Salesforce first. And this wasn't working because as soon as we did a review of data, we saw that I've just anonymized the users, but like we had public read access on the accounts, and you could see that like this is basically a graph to say how many accounts someone is holding and that have been in prospecting status for more than 30 days. And you'll see that like the worst culprit had like 800 accounts more than 30 days, meaning that they were just sitting on accounts, sending one email and then you know, hoping for the best and not really proactively seeing whether these accounts were being well worked on. So there was just a lot of hoarding going on. So we sat down and said, okay, how do we fix this really? And the first thing, wasn't really a technical thing at all. It was just really putting some rules and structure into the team and saying, okay, as a team, what do you think is fair and all that? And really the rule that came out was that, okay, it's free to take ownership. They don't want to make it too bureaucratic, but once you have an account, you have 60 days to make progress into that account, i.e. prospect into multiple accounts, start a conversation, and book a first meeting and validate that meeting with a follow-up meeting and book an opportunity within 60 days. If you do that, the account is yours for the lifetime of the opportunity until it gets closed out to one. If you don't within 60 days, then it becomes like this public target that people can then review and take away from you if they think you're wasting a high value account. So obviously then the team says, all right, 60 days, but then there's questions, right? So, okay, is it 60 days? Should it automatically be taken away in 60 days? Should we have a nightly batch revoking access to accounts and moving to some sort of centralized ownership? No, we don't want it that fast. That's a bit hectic. So, you know, maybe there's a long-term relationship. We don't want it automated like that, okay? Okay, well, if it's been in progress for 60 days and somebody requests it, should it automatically go to the requester? Oh, well, no, we don't really want that because you know, there's context and maybe it's not updated on Salesforce and maybe there's a long-term relationship and maybe it's a valid thing. Maybe there's a reason. Okay, so no, it's a manager judgment thing. And then we said, all right, well, how do you want this communication going between the organization? Well, no, let's just do it by email or WhatsApp. Like this is a South African company, so everyone's using WhatsApp, and we're like, no, well, that's not okay because the information management just becomes crazy. So sitting down and saying, okay, let's break down a process. We should be able to view accounts that are approaching or past 60 days, i.e. eligible to be taken over. Simple way to request the accounts, provide a motivation. Everyone should be notified, right? The requester, the current owner, the manager should be reviewed if this should be notified if this happens. Communicate without leaving Salesforce, right? No emails, no WhatsApps. View the status on a particular account. So is it in queue? Has it been approved or rejected? View a queue of requests. Approve or reject in a very simple way. And then automatic approval in certain scenarios to save time. And notify all parties when something's successful. Okay, so that's just formalizing the spec. That's putting your BA hats on. And then sitting down and saying, all right, well, what do we do first? You know, like looking around and saying, is there an app on the App Store that does this? And if there is it affordable or whatever? And then you say, well, there isn't, let's do it declaratively. And if we can't do it declaratively, let's go Apex. But in this case, it was actually pretty easy to do declaratively. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but it is all declarative, right? So, okay, how do you view stale accounts? Okay, well, formula fields on the accounts, calculating ownership days and dashboard that up. How do we request and approve stuff? Okay, screen flows. How do we do automatic approvals and things like that? Well, let's put some decision logic in the flow. Who are the approvers? Let's use public groups so that we're not hard coding people's names in and we can update and remove people from groups. How do we assign manager rights to approve? Let's use permission sets for that. Okay. How do we notify everyone? Let's use chatter so that we can communicate internally, but like, let's also, not everyone is logged into Salesforce all day. Let's fire off an email from Flow. And then I've also used the subflow, which I'll just talk about a little bit now, which I found to be quite a convenient, useful thing to do. Have a simple, in terms of a queue, we're just using a simple list view with a filter, communicating on chatter, and the status of the account is just some custom fields sitting on the account. So just to get into it, I can demo it in the Salesforce org, but I also kind of just did screenshots because I thought it might be faster. But when you're looking at a particular account, you'll see that this is an example of the formula just showing that this is a really old account. Okay. You'll see that there's a button there for request ownership, which is available to everybody. As you hit that button, a check is happening in the background. Is it eligible for request? Should it be automatically approved? The automatic approval works for like people that have left the company. Okay, so we mark, you know, the flow checks, is the user inactive? And if it is, then it just automatically approves it. In fact, I got a message this morning saying, hey, there's 3 more people that have left. Can you please make sure that their stuff is being automatically assigned, because our queue is building up for requests for people that have gone. And then you'll see that like at the bottom here, I've just got a report here. And this is, you know, launched from the dashboard just to show that which owners are sitting on so many accounts and what aging. So if you run out of leads and you're looking for leads for the particular week, you can go and hunt for some leads, high value leads that are sitting idle. Okay, and then very simple delete and approve buttons, which are run via which are given via permission sets. So this is what happens as you request ownership. A screen flow pops up and it just gives you a quick summary, and it just says, you know, it's requested by you. This is who owns the account. This is the name of the account, the current age. It gives you a link to view the accounts and a list and a link to the queue. Now that's useful because that goes via the email as well. So when the people get the email, instead of having to like now search the name in, they just click the link straight to the account. They can approve it in one shot, or they can go and check it in relation to the queue. Because sometimes someone's going and putting multiple requests on the same day, and they want to just see what's going on with so many requests. Then just to show like what's happening here, this is a screenshot of the queue. So this is well, in order to talk about the queue, we'd have to just talk about the account quickly. So this screenshot at the bottom here is the account. So that the custom fields that were built is that the checkbox to say that it's currently flagged for request, the date that the request was requested, who's requesting ownership, and a motivation, right? Usually there's no motivation required, but sometimes if it's contentious or to say that I've got a relationship with someone on LinkedIn and that's why I want to have second go, that's usually why they write some motivation there. And using these fields, then we then just do a quick queue, a list view to say, show me all accounts with a checkbox on account transfer, and just give the details so that the manager can log in every morning and just go through the queue and approve and reject. And then just an example of what the flow is then throwing out in terms of notifications, which is like a key part of this, is number one, a chatter message, and you can see the collaboration is already happening. This is still a very kind of scrappy startup sales team and saying Daniel has been requested for the account, and Stephen is going, it's all yours, bro. So still very scrappy and informal, but it's all happening on chatter. And this is the email that's getting fired out. So it's really the same text, just being sent over 2 channels to maximize visibility. And that's using a text template in the flow to then just write it all up and write once, use multiple. And that's also being used in the screen flow as it pops up as a confirmation. So one text template being used in 3 places. And then just important stuff on the back end, there's essentially 3 flows. There's the actual request flow, there's the approve flow, there's the delete flow, like the kind of reject flow, the public group, and the permission sets on the buttons. I don't know if anyone wants me to go into the logic of the flow, but essentially you've got your decision criteria at the top, which is saying like, should this be is there an error here? Is this account not eligible, or it should be automatically assigned? Or is it valid? And then it launches into the rest of it where it's making the updates to the account and writing the dates and the users and all of that. The approval flow, kind of something quite similar. One thing that we ran into was that, and this is just a tip if anyone wants to implement something like this, is that everyone wants things to be done via buttons to make it easy, one button to approve, but approving an account transfer via a flow and having a custom flow, basically you just change the ownership of the account using the flow at an update. But then you're losing out all of the kind of built-in functionality of doing an actual account ownership through the UI, which then gives you the option to transfer contacts and transfer opportunities and send notification emails. So that was like a trade for the users to be like, guys, I'll make you the one button, but I really think you should be just taking 1 extra second to do it through the UI because it saves a lot of time. But they were using it anyway, so then we built into the flow to at least transfer all the related contacts, because we were having accounts transferred over, but old contacts being owned by the previous person, that was causing issues with like Einstein email logging and things like that. Just one interesting thing that came out of this, I ended up building a subflow to build an email list from a public group. All right, because when you're sending a flow-driven email, you can then specify your recipient list, either as you can type them in or use variables or put in a kind of a collection list of strings, which is the email addresses. But there's no way to like automatically do that from a public group. So in order to just keep things simple, I built a subflow that ended up using a couple of times, which calls a subflow. All you do is provide the name of the public group. It goes and queries all the members of that group, provides the emails back as a variable collection, and then passes that back to insert into the email action. So that's they always say you do reusable flows and things like that. So that was a genuinely reusable one. And yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Just some considerations that came out of it, and interesting things is to say, well, why did you build all this complicated stuff? Why didn't you just use an approval request? We'll say, well, an approval request just out of the box locks the record while the transfer is being considered. which is not really what we wanted. I know you don't have to lock. There's ways to not lock the approval request, not lock the record that's subject to approval request. But the other problem was that we wanted to use a group of managers, which is not necessarily strictly according to the hierarchy. So then you kind of then run into problems with the approval request. So that's why it kind of made sense to build it in a bit of a more flexible way. And then just and this, I asked myself this question as well when I had to build that subflow in the for building the list of email recipients. Why not just use an email alert? Why use a flow email? You could just use an email alert with the templates and all that. Well, they are simpler to build, but the thing is, we needed some variables from the that were not actually being written to the record, that were being generated as part of the flow process. So if you're using an email template, you can only get stuff that's actually written to the record, not stuff that's being calculated in real time. So we decided to use a flow action so we could use a text template, and then ended up using the text template, obviously, in the email, the chatter message, the screen flow, and all that. So it was worth the trouble of building it. And then just some other considerations that we ran into. This was the first time that the organization was kind of using chatter. So we didn't have a public email address sent or org-wide email address sent, and this company had a very aggressive spam filter. So it was running into impersonation problems. All the chatter messages are being blocked. All the automatic messages are being blocked out of flow. So then we had to kind of put in a group-wide email address, whitelisted, do DKIM settings and all that kind of stuff, which hadn't really been necessary up to that point. And then one thing I did notice is that we had validation rules on the accounts, okay, just for data cleanliness, stuff like a country is mandatory on an account because, it's unbelievable how sloppy sometimes people can be with creating an account. They'll just write Walmart and they won't write anything else. So we've got some validation rules about country and a whole bunch of stuff. Now, what was happening was that you've got an account that you set up and you were very sloppy and you did it maybe before some of the validation rules existed. So now let's say a simple example, the country doesn't exist. Now you go and put a request in and you can't, as someone else, put a request for transfer because the person didn't fill in the data at the beginning. So it's firing a validation problem. You can't update the account. So after building that, I was like, after running into those problems, I was like, you know what, I should have done it as a related object, as a custom object looking up to the account so that it's not subject to the validation rules of the account itself, and running into these kind of problems. So that was a problem, note for improvement next time. Do the same thing just on a related object. And then I mentioned this already, better to use the standard UI instead of changing ownership of an account in the flow. And then the contacts as well weren't being transferred over, which is an upgrade to the flow. So simple declarative process, but simple request. There's a lot of stuff that you need to build, but that was just something that I thought genuinely useful.
So from start to end, how long did it develop?
2 hours. 2 hours, and then with some feedback about how it is being used and all that, maybe like another 1 or 2 hours, and then every couple of months I get an email about, can you change this particular thing or can you improve it? So like a very, very quick kind of thing to build in and get done. No, each one record at a time. I didn't. It's a good question. I don't think so. And in order to do that, I'm just trying to think like what I would have had to do is probably put like a quick action or something like that. But no, it didn't give them the option to do bulk selection, and no, one at a time. Yeah. No, I didn't. No, I haven't really. Well, that's a good note to look out for in future. What limits? And just for also more context, very small organization, small user counts and all that kind of stuff. So very much within the bounds of like